my Jenny reminded me to record this. I was supposed to record it, but I noticed there's a caller on here. I just have a phone number. It sounds like an old radio call-in show or something. Hey, there's a caller on line 3.
Hey,
who is
Dave,
that?
it's Charles. Charles. I dialed in because the video's reception was pretty poor.
Okay, Charles. Great. Glad to have you. Charles, what brings you here tonight?
Yeah, I think we're just looking for input. Maybe just see what the Lord could share with us. We obviously struggle. We have 2 little ones and then 1 teenager. Both work full time, and then of course the virus itself has added certainly stress to both of our works. My wife works with patients in a eye doctor's office, and then I've got a lot of employees that work under me on our project.
Okay. That sounds good. Corey, I know, and Jenny, I don't mean to put you on the spot either, but you had some really great things that you had talked to me about in terms of as parents, in terms of, regarding teachers being, kind of being patient maybe and gracious to teachers now because of you probably have firsthand experience. But you also said something I thought was interesting, because it can be very frustrating as a parent when you're trying to kind of balance all these things. Some of the kids are online learning, some are in the building now. I know with our kids, they're going twice a week. Jenny, would you mind sharing some of those things that you had shared with me?
Sure. Well, that's one thing that I talk to the families. Just a quick background, I am a virtual teacher. So our school model is kind of a blend of homeschool and public school. So typically in the past, parents who enroll with our school want to homeschool their children. And they aren't working parents, and they are choosing to give a lot of their day to their parent or to their children. And even in that scenario, it's really stressful. So this year, our school has quadrupled in size, and a lot of our families are working parents. And they don't necessarily want to be in this position, but they don't have another option. So it's incredibly stressful. But like I said, in the best case scenario, it's very stressful to be trying to homeschool your children and to be such a big part of it. And so typically what I try to guide my parents to do is to be very mindful of the atmosphere that they're creating in their home during their schooling experience, because it is really frustrating. It's really annoying when the computer's not working right, when the program's not working right, or a lot of kids are in Zoom this year. When Zoom's not working right, it's glitchy, can't get logged in. I've experienced this frustration with my children trying to get logged into their Zooms. And if we as parents are showing our frustration, showing our annoyance, showing our anger, our kids are going to mirror that. And what happens, and I've seen it many, many years in my school, is that is going to create the children's mindset about education and about learning. They're going to see it as a stressful thing. If they are struggling academically and their parents are frustrated with them and showing anger towards them, they're going to shut down academically. They're going to not want to try. They do not want to make mistakes because mom's going to get mad at them, and so they don't even try anymore. And it is really, really detrimental. And quite honestly, some teachers need to learn this in the school settings. The teachers that have worked with my children, a lot of them have had experiences where the teachers are yelling when they get frustrated. And that just shuts down a child. And the biggest, this is what I said at the beginning of this school year, is we have to keep the most important thing the most important thing. No matter what happens, keep that most important thing the most important thing of your day. And that is, we want children to love learning. We want children to believe in themselves. We want them to know it's okay to make mistakes and to struggle, that that's part of the learning process. But we want them to feel safe and happy. And so when the computer isn't working right, when they forgot to do an assignment or whatever, we have to keep the most important thing the most important thing. Yes, that's frustrating, but it's not more important than creating that atmosphere. And so it's really about never letting them see you sweat, just like the old Zest commercials. Don't let them see your hand. If you're frustrated, go into your bedroom, take a breather, pray, just take that time that you need, and then come out and just help your children to feel safe. Like, okay, well, this is a frustrating, because this is really a learning moment of what we can do when things get hard. What do we do when things get hard? What do we do when we face challenges? We get to model that directly to our kids. We need to stop, we need to take a breather, we need to pray, and we need to try our best, and we need to have grace with ourselves and with our family members, and just be okay in that moment. And so when, let's say, Zoom doesn't work for your child, just think of it as an opportunity. Okay, I'm going to be able to teach my child what to do when they're feeling frustrated. And then you get to model that right in front of their face. It's kind of scary, because there's a lot of times where the emotions of the moment take over, and you tip your hat and you do show them that you're about ready to cry. But then you say, okay, well, I'm really feeling frustrated. Are you feeling frustrated? Let's go ahead and just take a little break, or let's go for a walk, or let's pray about this. We'll figure it out. You can show encouragement to your child, and I would say that's the biggest, most important thing that we could be doing for our kids right now in the middle of this craziness. And even, like you said, Corey, the bus ride to school is their first experience of the day. Lisa has so much power. You might not even realize it. You have so much power to give them a friendly greeting, to let them know that they are loved and you're glad to see them. And that gets them started off on the right foot. And then, like you said, at the end of the day, if they've had a hard day, you could say an encouraging word and let them know that you care about them. And that's huge. So
Sure.
I think it's all about that atmosphere, just
Well,
creating it.
to piggyback that, when you're probably going to lose your cool at times, because it is easy to say, yeah, I'm going to, we're going to keep it calm and we're going to, but then sometimes everybody's heightened and you lose it. Then you can be an example of how to apologize,
Exactly.
how to feel that as an opportunity to, teach forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. Unfortunately, my kids are, going to learn that pretty well at times.
Mine too. Mine too. My kids have seen me stressed out, because normally they're not here during the day of my school day. They're at their school buildings. So now they see me throughout the day, and I'll like go, and then next thing you know, Josh is over here. He goes, "Do you need a hug?" And I'm like, "I do." And he's like, "I heard you sigh. I know you need a hug." I'm like, "Thank you." And it's really neat to see them showing compassion to me. And so it kind of inspires me to want to be more compassionate to them.
Yeah.
I I have a question, Corey, for you.
Mhm.
You spent most of your career in middle and high school as a school counselor. And this is the first year, well, other than the part of last year, but how has being a school counselor changed in a COVID situation? I mean, are parents talking to you more than usual? Are students being negatively affected by the pandemic in their learning, or maybe even their emotional stability, or depression, anxiety, things like that? What have you noticed in the last 8 months compared to your past years in your career?
Well, we just came to the close of first quarter, so the parents contacting me is going up, quite a bit because of the struggles that the students had in our district. In our area, some schools started off remote, and there was that whole learning curve of technology, and we had a new technology that wasn't marrying our old technology. And so you had these kids and teachers and then parents seeing all this frustration and stress. And then after about a month, we came back in person and finished out the quarter. But as you can imagine, the grades for a lot of these kids weren't where they were supposed to be, or where they're used to seeing. And so, yeah, there's some increased, frustration from that's carried over. I don't hear a lot about like, hey, I'm worried about getting COVID or anything like that. It has affected, some kids that have gotten it, but because then all their friends have to quarantine, and makes life a little bit more challenging for the teacher and for the kids. And then of course the parents to get them motivated. So I am starting to see a little bit more of it picking up as we keep moving forward. But it hasn't. I thought it was going to be a lot more, but I haven't felt like it's been overwhelmingly.
Has parents voiced frustrations like more than usual? Is it mostly students? I mean, like what have you seen?
I'd say it's probably a combination of the two. I see a little bit of both. Like I just had a conversation with a mom today on a Zoom call that her daughter's completely off track from what she's used to seeing, and just has trouble motivating her. And I think we're starting to also see a little bit of like that, especially in Ohio here where it's dark and at 5:00, and kids are starting to feel that depression a little bit from gray skies in the winter and that kind of thing, on top of all these other things going on. And the other thing is the election is not helping. Our high school students are discussing a lot of that, and it's causing some some comments from between. I'm voting for Trump and my family talks Trump and yours talks Biden. We're seeing a lot of that and some stress coming from that. And we had a mock election, and that didn't really help the cause. But but they're not only amongst themselves, but they're also feeling it with their parents, or part of their family might think this way and the other might think this way. So we're running into some of that as well, and it's causing some, and then it's spilling over into other issues in the LGBTQ area. There was, we had a whole discussion about that with some students, that it spilled over into that. So we're kind of seeing that as well.
The title of our talk tonight was Embracing Educational Challenges. I'm just curious how students and parents, or how students maybe, and maybe Jen can, and even Charles, if you have any thoughts you want to speak up, feel free. You don't have to, but I'm just wondering if that's even something you feel like students are doing. They're making the adjustment, they're embracing it, they're working with it. I mean, what are some positives that we've seen from that? I don't know, Jen, do you have any thoughts?
I can't speak for,
yeah, go ahead.
For our kids. I mean, like they've been in school the entire time. So we actually were in the middle of the worst of it. They were doing really nothing. And then I guess as schools have gone back and they've started implementing standard operating procedures, they've had to increase, temperature checks and a lot more stuff, that wearing masks for even the little ones in the last couple of weeks. But I've seen the kids really adapt. They have done much better with it than I expected.
Oh, good.
So it seems like they're pretty resilient compared to us adults.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I agree. The mask thing, my wife and I were just talking about that. The kids, they don't really complain about it too much, even at the high school level. A lot of them, we thought, well, maybe they'll have some attitude about it, and some opinions, but they've been pretty at adjusting, and like you said, they're resilient. Um, but I think the other thing is, with our school, we try to go back to a normal schedule, even if a kid is online, because we have a combination. Some kids chose to stay online and some kids are in session, but they have to go to their classes at the time their class is scheduled. They can't just, hop on whenever they feel like hopping on. They have to get up and run their usual schedule. And that was one of the things I was, thinking as far as like at home, even having a normal routine still, even though things are a little crazy, you're all at home at the same time all the time. But it's the importance of really having a regular routine so they continue to feel normal,
Corey,
what's that?
what percentage of your students are online versus on your campus? Like, is it, I mean, are there like dual, like where they only come a couple days, or is it either or?
It's either or. So I'd probably say 25% are at home still, and they are online all day, every day. And then you have, the several that are, just at school. But then as soon as they have to quarantine, now they're going back online, So we have some that are kind of floating in and out for 14 days.
And you're high school, so do you think that from an educational standpoint, those students that are trying to learn from home, do you think their educational outcomes are being achieved equally to as if they were in the brick and mortar? I'm just curious on what you're seeing with the online students that are regularly going to be in the school. I just wonder how that's playing out.
I think it's not quite as good because the teacher has to address the large classroom, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of the ones online. And I know some teachers are aware of that and they're trying to do their best to include those kids. But I know I've talked to some of the kids and they said it's, well, the ones that came back, they're like, I just could not learn online, and then now that everybody's back, the teachers are picking up their speed, so now the ones at home are having to like really get used to that speed. When they were used to back in the spring, it was really easy. Then when we first started back, they were kind of slow moving, and now everybody's back up to speed at school. And the ones at home are struggling a little bit as far as keeping up with that. And you can't ask the teacher a question really easily, like you would if you were in the classroom.
And I'm also curious to ask Jen something in terms of your, growing enrollment. Are you seeing a lot of students that are, kind of migrating to Virginia Virtual Academy because they think it's a better model than the school trying to pull it off and they're not used to pulling it off? And are you seeing a lot of those students being successful in that and liking it? And do you think this is something that a year from now that's your enrollment's going to go back down again when COVID gets, I mean, at some point COVID's going to be a little more under control. Do you expect enrollment to go drastically down again?
They are expecting for it to drop back down as soon as the schools are, back to their normal function. But I have been encouraged by several families who chose to homeschool this year and have realized that they really like it. They like to be a part of their child's education. They like to know. When you're homeschooling, you know what your child is struggling with and you know what their strengths are. And sometimes when they're in a school classroom setting in a brick and mortar, it's harder to know what are you even learning about. You don't have the books in your own hands. And so they kind of liked that, feeling that they now know more about their child than they did before. And so they have said that they think that they want to just keep on homeschooling. But then there is definitely some, it's probably the parents who are working full time and trying to do everything. And they just know that because it's a lot of work to, um, it's a huge commitment to homeschool. And if you know that you don't have the time to commit, then you are constantly fearful that you're somehow failing your child. So the parents who have those fears and are worried about that are probably going to withdraw and put their child back into the public school. But what I heard a lot from the ones who did enroll with us is that they were unhappy about how their public school handled it in the spring, which really isn't a fair, I don't know, a fair call, because I mean, who knew what to do? You know, who even knew what was going to happen? And all of a sudden I had to learn for several years to learn how to connect with the child online. You can't just learn it like that. And to pull a curriculum together and somehow have it accessible online, that's hard. You know, it's done for us by the K-12 curriculum. We just use their stuff. We don't have to develop it, but they've had to develop everything. So it's not really fair to think, okay, well, I don't like how you guys handled yourself in the spring, so we're not gonna. So, yeah. But then to also talk about what you had mentioned, I've seen several different things similar to what you had said, Corey, about students maybe not being successful in a virtual setting. And I really think that is an individual basis, you know. People who are self-starters, self-motivated, and have that intrinsic motivation, who maybe are a little bit more hardworking, can be extremely successful in the virtual setting, and then move on to college and really know how to be a self-starter and how to keep up with things. And they don't need the teacher to spoon feed everything to them and to give them all that external motivation of punishment and threats. You know, they know how to manage their time better, you know, on their own. But, you know, you have to embrace that type of learning. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to be a good situation. But
and I agree. I have some students like that, but then we have several that don't like school, so they thought, "Oh, this is my perfect opportunity to stay home and sleep in," and you know, and so they like, "No, you should have been back," you know, like you really need to be here. And then there's just the families are nervous about, you know, the COVID for health reasons and those kind of things. So I understand that. The one thing I want to also, you mentioned it, you know, I think you mentioned maybe even earlier in the conversation, is because of all of, you know, everybody trying to figure this thing out as far as school districts. I know in our district, from the top down, administration at superintendent level, all the way down to the teachers, trying to figure out new technology, like you said, and then teaching, you know, and then dealing with all the issues of technology as far as the mic's not working and this kid's Chromebook keeps kicking out and they have to take it this way. You know, all these things that started off the year looked really good on paper. Then we actually implemented it with, you know, 1,300 kids. And that was, so I guess, I think you even, like you said, this mentioned earlier about giving everybody some grace, whether it be teachers at school, you know, and if you're not hearing back from them right away, they have a lot coming at them. So just kind of friendly reminders, if you email the teacher, to see if you can get your answer, to follow up. But then also having that grace at home, like you said, too, with the kids, can be kind of tough because of the, you know, the stress of the day, you know, and you're coming home and you're hearing about their stress of their day, you know. And I'm glad Jen's on, because she catches that, you know, younger kid viewpoint. I've always worked middle school and up, and probably because I act like I'm 12 still, so it works perfectly to, you know, work with middle school and up. I'm just curious, what age groups, I heard, you know, like young ones and then teenager, what age are we talking about with I think it was Charles?
Yeah, so we got 1, 4, and 14.
Oh,
I'm just going to comment on my 14-year-old. So his mother and I are divorced, but he is predominantly with her. So I guess the one comment was about they went back to school. They actually go to school at Alouette Academy, where he goes to school at Alawite Academy where Lisa drives, but they went back to school with the first of the year. And so he enjoyed getting back in class because he did not like the online thing. And he's had to stay home a few days because he didn't pass the test questions. He had some congestion allergies or whatever. So he did not like the having to go back to it. So the idea, I think, of going back stresses him out a little bit if we were to get back in that scenario. But I would say the one thing that, and might be unique to our particular thing, but maybe not in our area, is so because his mother and I share time, I would often get him and was involved in a lot of his schooling while he was in school. But now because of this, where we do not, we actually had moved, but both houses, neither house had internet, right, other than our phones. And so it's been very much cumbersome for him. So he's not able to do his homework and stuff when he's here. So we've adapted our schedule. So I actually get to see him a little bit less because he doesn't come on those school nights when I normally would have him, because he's trying to do his online work. And it's still very heavy online because they're still have, like you said, folks quarantining and things of that nature. So
Yeah. But I think that really sends him a message, of how much you support him, as much as it's probably difficult for you to say, we're doing a little less time, what kind of things do you do to when you are with them that, I don't know, maybe you guys have any new, traditions that you guys have started or anything like that because I know that 14 years, that middle school age is a huge time in their life, what I mean, as far as middle school age. So do you guys have any special times that you guys do stuff together when he does come to your place, and what kind of things do you guys do?
I mean, we try. It's been quite an adapting for us because he was also very heavy into sports, and we still have no sports. And so that used to be our thing, because I could always go to his games or be part of him practicing or help him in the yard, pitching or catching or whatever. And so we don't have that now. So he has taken a lot to video gaming, which also is very difficult here at our home. So that's been somewhat of a challenge. When he is here, we spend time fishing or riding ATVs. Hunting season's coming up, so we'll spend some time in hunting as that's starting to come into season. So
awesome.
What
about John? What, did you guys have kids?
We have one son, and he's 22, so we've gotten past some of that. He does live at home, and he works, so he's not had to stop working or anything like that. But for us, I think the main thing for me being part of this, other than I'm the pastor and Dave asked me to be here, no, I'm just playing.
He paid you too.
I really wanted to, and I wanted to say thank you, Corey, for being here. But I think the main thing for me is dealing with a lot of young adults and teenagers and parents, like people that we're associated with, is just hearing a lot of people, even like we know a lot of counselors and things like that, like professional counselors and therapists, but talking about their kids just with a lot of depression as it relates to, hey man, this is my senior year. It's not the same. And just like Charles Brock, we're close with them, and watching Grayson and just going, hey, it was one thing when you go, hey, here's a pandemic. It's going to last for a couple months and it's over. And I thought, man, that would be great to be a kid and be out of school and all that, because we always dreamed of that. But then now it's like, it's just not going away, and then it's that looming, well, how long and how do you prepare for what you don't know? And I know how hard it is as just a church and adults, but when I look at the teenagers, I go, just talking to them, it's like there is a sense of, yeah, they're resilient in changing those things. But I have heard a lot, especially from middle school and high schoolers, of just a depression of going, yeah, life just isn't getting back to normal. And what do I do? And I can't see my friends. Like some of them had virtual learning in Virginia Beach, and they were just like super, like, especially the ones that are super personable. They're like, I can't be around my friends. And school is more than just education. It's like there's a social part that's just, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. And I think that's where, as a parent, I know it's easy for me to say the first thing, if my son or daughter even is not doing something, like clean your room, to take away the electronics. That's the number one easy, parent go-to thing, right? But going to what you said about the social piece, that is their social piece. You know, that's how they're able to interact and hang out and still be, you know, safe, you know, as far as distancing and everything. So I've had to reevaluate that. Not that I don't ever take it away, because sometimes it's the cause of it, or it's being, you know, it's used too much, you know, but I have to keep remembering that, wow, taking that thing away for 3 days is like big time for him, you know, because that social piece is so important to him. So, but you know, the other piece of the electronics is the social media piece, you know, and when they're spending too much time in the things you see on social, you know, that they're reading about on social media, and then how kids, you know, use that to do the bullying. And so it's really important, I think, you know, since they are at home a lot, to try to keep an eye on that social media, because there's so many avenues that they can go, from Snapchat to, there's other ones that can, you know, different apps that they can do to hide things even, you know, that looks, we had training one time and talked about an app look like a calculator, and that's the way they can hide pictures and stuff. I'm like, what are, you know, these people developing technology aren't helping parents, you know? And,
Yeah, no kidding.
but I tell you, you know, John, you guys are at that age where the brain starts to come back to working, you know, between the feelings part of the brain and the logical thinking part that kind of quits working at age like 13 or 14. So you guys actually, like, your son's probably like figuring out that you've known what you've been talking about all these years, right? Is that the light bulb starting to go on yet?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very interesting situation, which I think is kind of cool during this time, because I actually work a lot with the kids. So I work under Dave, and I work with our preschoolers, and Charles Brock and his family has been with our church for a long time. So I've watched Grayson kind of grow up from, you know, young elementary, and I had him when I was helping with youth. So, I mean, we have a great relationship there. I'm with the 4-year-old brother Weston is in my preschool class. And so,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's
so
who his
I'm
4-year-old was.
all these families, and I'm seeing how it's impacting everybody in different ways. And, you know, sometimes you know, you don't always know what the right answer is to say, you know, of how to be helpful with some of their struggles. So, you know, for me, Wyatt is obviously grown, but we did a little bit of, he went to public school for a few years. He was dyslexic, and we decided to homeschool. So I've kind of done a mix match of all kinds of things. Then we did kind of, through his high school years, we did a hodgepodge of, I kind of homeschooled, and then he also had a tutor where he did virtual things. So we were still kind of maybe more under Jenny's window, where we were homeschool family, but he had kind of a teacher where he went to class a couple days a week with other homeschool kids, and then did part of it virtual. So I've kind of seen from the parent side, just from Wyatt's growing up, of these different options that parents are facing now. But I think because so many of the schools and the districts are doing different things, so many of our families are facing different types of struggles. So like for like Charles and some of their families, this is a private school that's going, you know, 5 days a week, but yet then you have those quarantine moments where they're having to step back. And then I have, you know, some other families, like one in particular that I really feel for is, you know, she's a single mom who has, you know, a child that's, I think he's 5th grade, has some special needs, but is in a regular classroom. But then her parents are helping, but they're not good with the technical stuff. So it's literally, you know, she's going to go to work, you know, the 9 to 5, grab dinner, try to come home, and then it's, you know, 2-3 hours of making sure everything's done, and then it's another day. And, you know, I just feel for these parents that are working or trying to keep up with that. The kids I'm seeing, especially in the older elementary age, I think some of the kids are feeling just kind of disillusioned a little bit with like what things aren't what they expected, some of their hopes of what they anticipated to experience isn't there. There's no real understanding that anything to normal is going to come back. You know, they can tell their parents are struggling. So kind of for me and for us, I think even as a church and as friends of families that are struggling, you know, how can we kind of be helpful to be supportive and encouraging for these families that are all in a different place and kind of experiencing different modes of what this world looks like.
Yeah. Great.
I think one of the other things, Corey, that I was going to ask you, if that's okay, is because being I have an adult kid, I probably should just be quiet. But but I do think it fits with everybody's kids. But it's like activity-wise, like even Charles tapped on that a little bit. But it's like, man, coming up with activities right now that interact with people, like everything that they want is social distancing and being away from people. And I'm just like, well, what do we? I mean, like, I think the kids are really starving for it. Like, we just went back to church for the last month with kids coming back, and I think they super enjoyed it. But it's like, you know, is there ideas for like helping them have opportunities to interact? Because it's like everything is shut down, you know? And like, even the theater, it's like they're reopened, but they don't have anything to watch hardly. I mean, it's like we went and we're like, dude, they're playing Empire Strikes Back and Little Shop of Horrors, you know? And I was like, are you guys kidding? Like, we went to see Tenet, and that was just a horrible movie, so I don't recommend it. I mean, not horrible morally wrong, but just the stupid movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe trying to start some type of a new tradition or introduce them, you know, have a movie night where maybe you watch an old movie that was maybe more popular when we were younger, you know, like Teen Wolf or something. Bust out some Teen Wolf. You know, hey, by the way, pre-watch some of these movies because some of them are they have some bad message, you know, some bad lines in them. You know, I didn't realize that when I was younger, but anyway, or you know, doing just more specific idea of there's this thing called Jackbox games. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. My neighbor introduced me to it. His family lives in Pittsburgh, and he lives here. And we were at his house, he told me to log in, and I said, okay, yeah, let me try this out, you know. And here we are playing a cool game online, you know, called Jackbox games. And his mom and sister are sitting in Pittsburgh. We're all sitting in Canton in our own homes, but we're all having fun laughing at our answers that we were giving. So I brought my parents in, you know, who live an hour away, and they had a blast with it once we finally got them to figure out how Zoom works. You know, that was half the battle right there. But you know, just trying to come up with things like that. And I think that's where, you know, like you said, how can we support each other? That's just like my buddy shared that idea with me, you know, and I'm telling you guys, you know, so we're all kind of sharing ideas. But I think going back to what we were talking to Lisa about earlier, it can be something as simple as just calling somebody or texting them really quick, like, hey, praying for you. Just a quick example, there's a guy, one of our new neighbors, because we just moved into a house, and this older couple, the guy's like, I don't want to say he's a grumpy old guy, but he's not real social. He'll say hello and stuff here and there, but he knows about my mom's situation. The other day, I was just working in the garage, and he just was walking up from getting his mail, and he just, hey, how's your mom doing? You know, something as simple as that meant a lot, especially coming from him, who I'm like, wow, I'm surprised he even remembered, you know. But he brought me my mail, and just, you know, just an encouraging word. And then I'm able to share that with my mom, who encourages her, you know. So I think sometimes we kind of think it has to be some grand thing where we bring somebody dinner, you know, but it can be something as simple as, you know, Lisa saying, you know, good morning to a kid and smiling, you know, and asking them something that she remembered about something they told her a week ago. You know what I mean? Something that takes us 5 seconds, but we just need to remember that. Or shooting a text to somebody just saying you're thinking about them. How's that situation with the job search? Because that's another piece of the puzzle, is people losing jobs. And I've had several guys from my life group that are, you know, looking for jobs, you know, and they have families. So, but I think communication, you know, whether it be parents to parents, you know, I think that's the key part of having, you know, small groups, especially us as Christians, to be able to listen to one another and hear what's going on in life and be able to share those struggles, and then again share ideas and just have people praying and sharing scriptures. But also we got to remember to be listening to the kids, what's their view on things, and taking time to just kind of hear about what they're doing and allowing them to, give us their thoughts without us just jumping in and wanting to give our advice right away. You know what I mean? Sometimes they just want to be heard, especially those teenagers. But I think going back to the brain development thing I want to touch on too, is like, I struggle sometimes, 14 to 22, 23, 24 guys, probably 25 because we're a little slow, but that brain turns off. And so that those common sense things where you're like, why'd you do that? Well, I felt like it, you're like, at this time, it's really easy to get frustrated, especially with a 14-year-old. Charles, you can probably relate to this because I'm dealing with a 14-year-old myself. But they really felt like it, because they weren't thinking like, man, that was probably dumb. I might get me in trouble, or I might get hurt, or you know what I'm saying? So sometimes we have to remember to help fill in the gaps with patience of that logical thinking to get them to think. The common sense stuff to us is not common sense to them. And I run into that all the time. You'll say something that's really not that deep, and they're like, wow, man, Mr. Smith really knows what you're talking about, Or the other piece of the puzzle is, and this is what parents need to remember, is they might act like they're not listening, like, oh, whatever, dad, whatever, mom, and really they walk away thinking about it. And I think that's the hardest part, because you want to hear that, you're right, thanks for sharing that with me, but they're not really looking to give you any props until they're 23, 22, hopefully. Maybe 25. Sorry, guys. Hunters, sorry. Might be 25. You might have 3 more years to go.
Hey, I want to interject here because we're approaching 7:45. So my hope was 7:45 with a 15-minute buffer to 8. And all of y'all have great comments, great things that you're saying. I noticed Mark Santum is on. I don't know, Mark, if you're able to get off mute and say hello and see if you have any thoughts. If you don't,
hey, if we get Mark off mute, that's taking us all the way till 8 o'clock. So I don't know if that's good. I know
Mark and Corey know each other. Yeah. So, but I don't see Mark coming off mute, so that's okay. Wait.
Oh, I'm off mute. I'm off mute, buddy, and I got a lot of things to say.
Oh, man.
So anyhow, just as like 14 corrections to what Corey said, but maybe I'll save that for my talk next week.
Hey,
Good job, Corey.
You better be 2 hours for next week so you can correct everything I said and share things you want to say, right?
Good to see you again, my friend.
You too. Well, kind of. I don't really see you. I just hear you. I can picture your beautiful face, though.
Yeah, that is probably better.
So, Mark, I'll explain this real quick. Mark worked at a college in Pennsylvania back in the 90s, and me and Corey worked at a different college in Pennsylvania, and we met that way because they were both Christian colleges. So Mark is originally from Pittsburgh, but Mark lives in Virginia Beach. And Mark has been a student pastor and worked in student ministries for many years. Mark is going to be our guest next week, which I'm actually real excited. And I hope more folks from the church will log in and listen. But Mark still has 2 children at home. Mark, do you have any comments? I mean, you don't have to talk a lot. I just wonder if you had any thoughts from what we've been talking about, maybe your experiences with COVID or schooling. Just kind of wanted your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, well, I know you know this, Dave, too, but my daughter, she's a senior this year, and I know John made a reference to all kids are doing tough, but like this is my senior year, and now she is at Atlantic Shores Christian School, so she's actually back in class, which has really been a huge answer to prayer for us, because she has literally, before COVID hit, she's been suffering with anxiety and depression. She had a severe eating disorder. So it's been a very grueling past 2 years for us. And so, now every reference to depression, we have felt that the weight of it has been magnified for us. And my son's in the public school in Virginia Beach, so he's actually going back, I guess, on the 12th, 2 days a week. And so it's been really interesting to see these dynamics at play. And I'm just glad, because every kid is different. So it's been, let me just say this: if my son was going to the Christian school and was back in person, and my daughter was the one that was continued to stay at home in lockdown, my life would be a lot more intense right now. So I am very grateful because they are both managing fairly well under the circumstances. But anyhow, I'm not an educator anymore, used to be, so I really appreciate the insight that you had, Corey, and then what everyone was chiming in, because everybody's got a different story, but the reality of the depression has been very sobering for us when we already had on top the COVID depression, I'm saying, on top of my daughter that was clinically diagnosed and has been on medication and seeing counselors, some of them good, some of them not so good. Anyhow, a lot of this was really hit home in a personal way tonight. So thanks for being on the front lines, Corey. I really appreciate that, man.
Good thing. My pleasure.
Hey, Corey, and I think we're going to just go ahead and bring this to a close. I know we had talked about a scripture that you feel like God led you to. And why don't you, as we close, why don't you share some thoughts and then maybe just kind of close us out with prayer and I can say a couple things at the very end, but is that cool?
Yeah, good. So, I like being able to talk to a Christian group here, and in my job, I try to incorporate scripture. If I know a kid goes to church even a little bit, I like to try to bring in scripture or talk to them about their relationship with the Lord, which is a tough line to, stay on in a public school. But I wanted to, we can read books. There's tons of stuff on social media. There's, groups, discussions like this. We can talk to friends and everything. But, during these tough times, it's just such a relief to be able to go to the Lord. And I just want to share in Jeremiah 33:3. I've been noticing this quite a bit, and you guys probably have seen this as well, but it's just God's really been showing me this. Is like a lot of times in Scripture, there's an action required by us that God says, hey, do this, and then I will do this. And so in one of the examples is in Jeremiah 33:3. I'll read this thing to you. Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. And I want to highlight that first thing. First step is us calling to him. He says, call to me, and then I will answer you and tell you great and hidden things you do not know. And I know a lot of times I'll fall into I'm going to try to fix this thing, and I'm going to stress out. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to call Dave. I'm going to call this person. I'm going to do that. And then when I'm really overly stressed, oh yeah, I better pray. Instead of the other way around. One of my favorite verses in, Philippians 4:6-7, do not be anxious about anything. And I was like, man, at first I was like, oh, when you worry, because it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And I was working at Ligonier Camp out in Pennsylvania, and I was sharing that, like, hey, when you worry, make sure you pray, basically. But when I really broke that verse down, it says, do not be anxious. And, well, how do you do that? Well, in everything, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and then his peace comes. That's verse 7. So I've been going through the book of Mark because I'm the advisor for Fellowship of Christian Students at school, and we started going through the book of Mark, and I thought, I'm going to really dig in my quiet times. And it kind of went right along with the Jeremiah 33:3 verse about an action by us to call to him. And in Mark 6, you guys are probably all familiar with this story about Jesus walking on the water. And this is right after he fed 5,000. He's kind of like dismissing the crowd. And then he had his disciples get in the boat and go on ahead of him. And so he went up to the mountainside to pray. And when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. And he saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind had come up against them. So the first thing is he saw them straining. And so that hit me right there. And then he said, about the fourth watch of the night, he went out to them walking on the lake. He was about to pass them by okay, like Christ didn't see him sitting there struggling for the last how long, and like he doesn't know they're there, right? So why would he try to? But it said, but then when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they saw him and were terrified. And then immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." And then he climbed into the boat with them and the wind died down. You guys know how it ended, but it was like he waited for them to cry out, and then he's like, "All right, I got you," and so it just, those two kind of went hand in hand for me. That what a comfort to know that, we have a God who is just waiting for us to cry out and wanting to calm those storms down a little bit. Not that he won't allow them to continue to happen, obviously, because we all can be sanctified through these, these trials that we are going through. And I think if we kind of look at some of this COVID time as maybe God sanctifying us, and maybe sanctifying our kids through this struggle, causing him to, or helping us to learn to look to him, and to draw him closer to himself, draw us closer to himself. So just wanted to share that to kind of close us up this morning, to keep that in mind, that we are to cry out to our God who wants to calm the storms in our life and come alongside us and use one another, to do that. I think that's one of the biggest things, not being able to get together, is that piece. Satan wants to keep us apart, and so trying to connect in some way or another, whether it be Zoom. It's not the most ideal, but it's good. We can at least listen to one another and encourage one another and shoot those texts out and different messages and words of encouragement. So just wanted to close and share that with you guys as God laid it on my heart just recently.
All right, great. Thanks, Corey. Corey, would you be open to closing us in prayer? And then I'll just say kind of a few closing things.
Sure thing. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you tonight, Lord, and we thank you, first of all, for being a God who is just waiting for us to cry out to him. And Lord, you are there to calm the storms in our life, Lord. And we feel like we really are in this whirlwind right now of this COVID time, and just life is being is just different than what we're used to, Lord. And we're making adjustments. We're trying to support one another. We're trying to support our kids, taking care of people that are sick and struggling, and whether it be physically or mentally, Lord. But Father, we know that you are with us, and we thank you for that, and that you are there to encourage us and to give us strength in times of need. And Lord, we thank you for using this time to draw us closer to yourself, to change us, to be more like Christ. And we pray that you continue to help us to do that, Lord. Give us wisdom on a daily basis, Lord, to know who we need to reach out to, who needs a word of encouragement for that day, Lord. It can be overwhelming. Think about all the people that we can reach out to, and friends and family and fellow church members, Lord. But Father, each day we pray that you would give us somebody on our heart that we can reach out to that needs that encouragement, Lord. Help us to live out our lives in a way that is honoring to you, so that others might see that, Lord. Others that maybe aren't believers might see how we're handling things. Lord, I pray that we would look to be intentional in people's lives, to encourage each other, Lord, and help us to love people the way you love them. And we just we pray all these things. And Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to join these guys, Lord, as fellow believers in the body of Christ, Lord, all the way across a couple states. We thank you for technology that allows us to do that. And Lord, I just lift up each person here tonight and pray that you just give us guidance and wisdom throughout our different areas of ministry. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Wow, thanks. I thought this was great, Corey. You did a great job. I loved having you on tonight. Charles, good to have you on, and Lisa, and of course Jen and John and Marie, of course. Next week, it looks like Mark logged off, but Mark's going to be speaking on shepherding our sons and daughters from doubt to faith. I love that title. I'm actually very excited. I hope some more families will join us. but I felt like this was very good evening, and I just appreciate all y'all. That's the Southern Virginia way of talking, Corey. You know, all y'all versus you guys.
Yeah, that's right.
So now I say all y'all, and instead of pop, I say soda. It's rubbing off on me after all these years, but so all y'all, I'm gonna go have a soda.
Is it the same meeting so I can join all y'all next week? That sounds like a great topic.
Yes, absolutely. I don't care who comes. There was 2 people that said they were going to log in tonight, and they didn't. So I don't know why, but it is what it is. It's fine. But
my mom couldn't make it, and then my grandma couldn't either. So I try to get as many people on as I can so I can look like a big time.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, everyone. I think unless you have any final thoughts, we can shut her down, and all y'all can get some sleep tonight and go have a soda or something, right?
Yeah. It's nice to meet you guys. I appreciate you sharing and let me join in.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
How do I